everyone, when we think about making a short film, we often think about the visuals, right? So the set design, how we're going to shoot it, but sound is just as important. It's half of the experience. So today I want to share how I did the sound design for my short film, Narration Violation. I'm Joppe Koops and welcome to my YouTube channel. Okay, if you haven't seen my short film yet, watch it first because this video contains spoilers. Like most films, almost all of the sound is created in post-production and I barely used any of the sound recorded on set. This includes most of the dialogue because its quality is often poor.
Okay, delete.
No, wait, not really. We still need it.
Okay, command set. But why do you record it at all if you're just gonna throw it away?
That's our reference audio. We use it as a guide for the audio we're going to create. It contains important information about the audio that was present during recording. Besides, we don't want to throw away all the dialogue. Ideally, you would record all dialogue well on set, but sometimes that's just impossible because there's too much background noise. Okay, later we'll look at how to improve bad dialogue. Let's first identify the sounds we need. To avoid doing things randomly, we must first make a sound plan. This is called a spotting sheet. You do this by watching your film multiple times and writing down all the sounds that are needed. This is one for my short film, scene 1 and scene 2. Let's take scene 1 as an example. As you can see, I've divided the sounds into categories. We have Foley, those are the sounds that occur naturally in the image. We have ambience, that's just the surroundings. We have sound effects, sounds that didn't really happen but are there to enhance actions. And of course we had dialogue, which was already recorded well for this scene. And here I've listed all the sounds per category. For Foley I take many sounds from the reference audio, pay close attention to what happens in the image and see what sounds are needed to accompany it. There are often more sounds needed than you might think. This includes the sound of, for example, walls falling, but also more subtle ones like rustling of clothes when someone moves. I still sometimes make the mistake of not adding enough sound and leaving too much to the music. However, for Narration Violation the amount of music was intentional because it adds to the comedy genre. Music sets the mood of the film, but something that also plays a big role is the ambience. For this I thought about what sounds happen in the surroundings within or outside the frame. In this case, because this is seen in a prison cell, I added distant shouting and slamming of metal doors, but you can also really think about the mood of the scene. For this it's kind of sad and Wallace is angry and irritated, so I added rain and thunder even though it wasn't raining during the shoot. Later I even added the raindrops on the window in the visuals. Finally, sound effects are there to enhance the scene. These are non-diegetic sounds, so the characters in the scene can't hear them. For instance, I used a metal falling sound effect to emphasize the falling of Wallace, and I also added chirping birds when he stands up again for a comedic effect. This demonstrates well that sound isn't just supportive but can tell its own story. We've added atmosphere, reinforced emotions and added comedic effects that weren't there before. Now we have a plan, let's go to step 2, acquiring all these sounds. For big films, Foley is often recorded in a studio by a Foley artist using various props. This is a fascinating aspect of sound design and I might make a separate video on it in the future. However, I didn't do this for my short film because I just don't have the right equipment to record all the sounds properly. So, where do you get your sounds from then? Some sounds I recorded myself, especially Foley and ambience, while others I found online. There are several good websites for this, offering free resources. The one I use the most is freesound.org, where users upload their recordings for shared use. Pay attention to licensing though, some require attribution while others are under a Creative Commons 0 license. Also check the audio quality, because not everything is great because literally everybody can upload. Fortunately you can see bit depth and sample rate details, and often users will add how a sound was recorded to the description. Another resource is the YouTube audio library, which is known for its music that is being used in a bit too many YouTube videos, right? But also it has decent sound effects. Sounds that I recorded myself were, for example, the footsteps and ambient sounds in scene 2. It's difficult to find the perfect footsteps, so I found it easier to go back to the shooting location and record them myself. While I was there, I also captured the right background noise. By doing this actually on the shooting location, the sound automatically matches the picture without me needing to add in a lot of effects to make it seem like it matches. After you have all the sounds, it's time to put them together. For that, back to the studio.
Before you start adding sound effects, it's useful to set up your project properly. This will make mixing easier later on. I use different tracks for all the different types of sounds and assign different colors to them to distinguish them. I use different shades of green for all the voice related sounds, so standard green for camera audio, teal for ADR and turquoise for all the voiceover, orange for all the sound effects, and you can also make distinctions within this category by using different shades. I use pink for all the background sounds and finally purple for all the music. As you can see, I have different tracks per category, and to bring them together I create a bus for each category and route all the tracks into it. I then route all these buses into the master bus. This allows me to adjust the volume of an entire category or apply effects to that entire category, such as compression. The next step is to add all the sounds. The order I follow is start with the dialogue first, because that just has to be clear. And then I add the backgrounds and the surroundings, and then I layer the sound effects and Foley on top. Initially, timing is the most important factor, especially for short sounds, right? They need to be placed at exactly the right moment. But for more general sounds, this is more flexible. For example, if a group of people walks by, you wouldn't place a sound for every single footstep. You would take a general sound of a group walking by and then maybe add specific sound for people in the foreground. A good example of this is scene 2. It takes place on the street, and the background sound which I recorded had a lot of general city noise in it, and then I added specific sounds, for instance footsteps on heels when someone walks past the camera, and naturally I also added sounds for my own footsteps as the main character, because that's what the audience focuses on, right? The next step is adjusting all these sounds to make them feel like they're in the same space. This means placing them in the environment. Since I mixed in stereo, this includes panning left and right, but even with two speakers you can create the illusion that it's further away from the camera or closer to the camera just by adjusting the properties. For left and right placement it's very simple, right? If you see something on the left of the screen, you pan the sound slightly to the left, or if it's on the right, you pan it slightly to the right, but don't exaggerate this, because even if a sound originates from one side, you can still hear it in both ears. For near and far placement it's a bit more complex. Of course we have the volume, which is higher if you get closer and lower if you get further away, but also the tonal balance of the sound changes. Low frequencies will travel further through air than high frequencies, so sounds that are further away will have less high frequencies, and you can filter them out with an equalizer effect. And finally it's time to mix all the sounds together. Here it's important to listen very carefully to the balance of the whole mix. Now that we can adjust the volume of every clip, track and bus, we can really shape the final mix. You could try and mix everything as natural as possible, but this is also your turn to make some creative choices. You might have a lot of background noise that you want to be less noticeable, or the other way around, you want to emphasize it, like I did in scene 4. This was filmed across the street with a lot of traffic passing by, so the director found it more than logical that you wouldn't be able to hear the dialogue that well. Since I had the background sounds and dialogue on different tracks, I could control this very precisely. So I could make the background sounds very loud while allowing the audience to pick up enough of the dialogue to still understand the story. Unfortunately, a lot of the scenes had poor audio quality. Outdoor scenes in particular just had too much background noise. This meant I had to re-record some of the dialogue. This is called ADR, or automatic dialogue replacement, and usually this is done in a soundproof studio where there's no echo or reverb. The sound is then processed to add echo or reverb and make it sound like the original film environment. Well, I don't have access to such a studio, and if I had recorded the audio in this room, it would have sounded like this room, which doesn't fit your original environment. So I came up with a little trick. I just recorded the dialogue outside in a quiet place. So for example, I did some of the dialogue on my balcony with the microphone we used for the original film. This way the sound naturally matched the original environment. DaVinci Resolve has a dedicated tool for ADR in the Fairlight page, which is handy because you can listen to the original dialogue while you record the new dialogue. The other functionalities I find kind of clunky in practice.
Right, with these 3 steps and an optional 4th step, I created the sound design for my short film. I believe these steps are useful for any film, so I wanted to share them with you. And that's it for today. Like and share this video and subscribe for more. Here's a video on how I used AI for this short film. I'll see you next time.